Tear gas used again at the border. The reasons behind the latest confrontation just hours into the new year. Running for San Diego mayor, Barbara Bree becomes the first major politician to announce her campaign for 2020.
We have all the technology, great people, and we should do better than this.
New concerns about the future of San Onofre. Scientists question how nuclear waste is being handled.
I think it's just something really exciting that California stepped up to do this, and we expect other states to follow suit soon.
California cracks down on puppy mills. The new law change that changes the kind of animals you'll find in pet stores. KPBS Evening Edition starts right now. Good evening and thanks for joining us. I'm Ebone Monet. The Department of Homeland Security says tear gas was launched at a group of migrants in Tijuana on New Year's Day because they approached the border as a violent mob. But KPBS reporter Jean Guerrero spoke to people who were there and they say that depiction is inaccurate.
President Trump says the tear gas incident shows why a tough border is important.
We have a very tough border. I think you see that even last night where people charged the border, tried to get through, but they couldn't because we have a wall up. And but tear gas was flying and a lot of things were happening. And I guess for the most part, you've seen it. It's very sad.
But freelance photographers and activists who are documenting the attempted crossing say migrants were peacefully waiting with their backs against the border wall when the first tear gas canister was fired. One of the freelance photographers was Keitra Kahana, who was hit in the thigh with some kind of pellet that she says was launched by U.S. authorities.
While I was down there photographing that scene, another huge round of tear gas started coming over the wall onto the Mexican side. And so, immediately started photographing and running. I felt a sharp pain in my leg, in my thigh.
A group of 11 Americans, including left-wing militant Antifa protesters, were also on the scene, administering milk of magnesia to migrants suffering the effects of tear gas. When asked if they were helping migrants get over the fence, they declined to comment. Another journalist on the scene says he saw them helping and encouraging people to cross illegally. Jean Guerrero, KPBS News.
Councilmember Barbara Bree says she wants to be San Diego's next mayor. She formally announced her candidacy today. Bree is the first prominent candidate for the 2020 election. Current Mayor Kevin Faulkner will not run due to term limits. Bree is the council member for District 1, which covers La Jolla, University City, and Carmel Valley. Democrats in the House plan to pass a spending bill that would reopen the government. They'll take control when the new Congress is sworn in tomorrow. Representative-elect Mike Levin shared this photo today of his new office at the Capitol. He's one of 40 Democrats who flipped Republican-held seats, including North County's 49th district. NPR and KPBS will have extensive coverage of the new Congress. Coverage begins tomorrow morning on Morning Edition. You can also find updates on kpbs.org. Former San Diego City Attorney Mike Aguirre believes the handling of nuclear waste at San Onofre might be a criminal matter. Aguirre sent a letter to the FBI asking for a formal investigation. He wants to know if recent issues with the handling of nuclear waste are not just mishaps, but willful violations. Southern California Edison says the issue should be handled by the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, which is conducting its own review. Southern California Edison wants to resume burying nuclear waste at San Onofre, but KPBS North County reporter Allison St. John says opposition is mounting, and it's not just from activists.
The San Onofre nuclear power plant, 50 miles north of downtown San Diego, is being decommissioned. The distinctive domes will eventually disappear, but the site is being turned into a nuclear waste storage site, or dump, because Congress has not found a long-term solution to the problem of what to do with high-level nuclear waste. The former head of the Navy in San Diego, retired Admiral Len Herring, is one of the voices sounding the alarm about the way Southern California Edison is going about storing spent nuclear fuel at San Onofre.
I'm an advocate for nuclear energy. I'm not a believer that it needs to disappear. But the proper handling of the material is what we are talking about here. The decommissioning of the Songs plant involves the handling and the storage of nuclear waste in a fashion that is, for all practical purposes, not being done safely for us.
We get solar wind sample. We get out the atoms from that sample.
In his lab at UCSD, scientist Subrata Chakraborty feels the same way about the iconic San Onofre site.
I have a kind of soft corner toward nuclear energy because it's one of the biggest energy source. And when I came here like 16 years ago, I saw this nice dome, and then I was fascinated about it.
But after Southern California Edison had a near-miss accident last August while moving the nuclear waste, Chakraborty agreed to work with physicist Tom English to analyze potential problems with the way the operation is being conducted. He demonstrates with a model the challenge of loading a 17-foot-tall canister loaded with 54 tons of spent fuel into the round hole of a concrete storage bunker.
The clearance between this canister and this hole is like a quarter of an inch.
Last August, a canister got stuck on an inner guide ring.
So what happened is the thing was in here like this, but it got stuck like this.
The loaded canister nearly fell 18 feet into the bottom of the hole. This crisis was narrowly averted, but English and Chakraborty point out that a Nuclear Regulatory Commission report on the near-miss accident says virtually all of the 29 canisters already loaded likely got scratched repeatedly on the way down.
Well, let's suppose they get it past the ring a little bit. Okay, then they're going to continue the process of move it down a little bit, move it a few inches here, move it there. And what's going to happen is every time you move it, this giant weight of 54 tons bangs into the canister, bangs into the ring. When it bangs in, it makes a gouge. So what we've done is we've made some calculations about how deep those gouges are.
We are in the 21st century, and the technique they are using, when the Egyptian 3,000 years ago, they use the same technique.
English and Chakraborty say scratches on the canisters open up new surfaces that are vulnerable to chemical reactions, and that could result in corrosion cracking over the long term.
It would lead to crack and cracking of the cylinder because these cylinders are not that thick. This is only 5/8 inch thick. So this is potentially a big issue.
Chakraborty says Holtec International, the company that designed the storage system, has included no sensors to detect potential damage. Edison has resisted suggestions to pull the canisters out to check them, though NRC regulations require the canisters be retrievable. At a community engagement panel meeting in November, Tom Palmisano of Southern California Edison responded to a question about the problem of leaving scratched canisters in storage.
According to the NRC, they're damaged to all the canisters. Why are you still wanting to load if the canisters are damaged already? When and how will you fix damaged canisters?
Again, I think if the damage is referring to the incidental contact that causes shallow scratching, we don't see that as an immediate issue. The scratches are shallow, well below an acceptance criteria for an acceptable scratch. The oxide layer reforms in these storage vaults. So, quite frankly, we don't have a short-term concern with that. It becomes a long-term aging management concern.
But that is exactly the problem, says Chakraborty, who notes that there's no guarantee or even likelihood the waste will be moved within the next few decades.
The problem is right now, this level here, the bottom of this cylinder, is 18 inches above the mean sea level. And now after 50 years, when the sea level rise, it is no longer a dry storage, it will be a wet storage. We have all the technology, great people, and we should do better than this.
The more I learn about what's happening and how it's being done, the more I'm fearful that we as a population are not being protected by the procedures that are in place. The aspects and efforts that are being done for what I believe now is for the sake of money is in fact putting all San Diegans at risk.
Herring is calling for a halt to the process of burying the remaining 44 canisters of spent nuclear fuel.
We need to stop, take a break, go back to square one, force the individuals to do the right study and with the right solution so that it does not put San Diego at risk.
The Nuclear Regulatory Commission has said it will not give Southern California Edison the go-ahead to resume burying the waste until after a public conference. Alison St. John, KPBS News.
California pet store owners can no longer sell animals from breeders. This is thanks to a new law that went into effect this week. Supporters say it will save hundreds of thousands of animals from being euthanized each year and hopefully serve as a model for other states.
Oh, pretty cute. She's gonna be in love.
Affection for a rescued kitten from potential new owners.
We decided for the new year that we'd like to start it off by adopting a new cat.
Erin Anderson is here at the San Diego Humane Society, determined to leave with a companion for her young cat.
Truly, animal rescues have provided us with some of the most loving, sweet, and just thankful animals.
As of January 1st, California pet store owners must provide documentation showing the dogs, cats, and rabbits they're selling are from shelters or rescue organizations, or face a fine of $500 per animal.
It takes the puppy mills completely out of the picture.
Steve McKinnon, chief of humane law enforcement, says having the law take effect 2 years after its passage will hopefully protect animals from the atrocity of puppy mills.
They're in cages, they never go outside, they're never walked, they're never shown any type of love or affection, things like that. And you can imagine that the puppies being born in those type of conditions, that they go straight from the mother's caging into a big tractor trailer, then delivered across country to places like in California and elsewhere. It's just not a good condition.
When capital is the bottom line and there are creatures involved, living creatures, I mean, they suffer. They're just trying to pump out animals.
Opponents argue the law hurts small business and takes away a pet owner's right to choose, while many animal advocates say adopting a rescued animal is the humane choice.
I feel like it's more fun to come in and kind of find the animal that's calling to you anyway, you know? I feel like when you meet them, you know.
Yeah.
Hundreds of new laws are now in effect. Some of them touch on what we eat, how we identify ourselves, and the money in our paychecks. Dana Beards of Capitol Television has some details about the changes.
Order a kids' meal at a fast food restaurant and you'll either get milk or water, unless you specifically ask for a sugary drink. The idea is to keep kids healthier and reduce childhood obesity. Order something to drink at a sit-down restaurant and you'll have to do without a straw, unless you ask for one.
Because when you go to the restaurant, whether you use the straw or not, that straw gets thrown away and ends up in the garbage.
Lawmakers hope to keep beaches cleaner and say they'll work on similar straw bans for fast food restaurants, coffee shops, and convenience stores in 2019. There's a big change for California driver's licenses. You no longer have to identify as male or female. There is now a third gender category called non-binary.
We will make a form available at the field offices and also online to allow applicants to be able to select non-binary as a gender category on their driver's license or ID card.
In the California business world, publicly traded corporations must now appoint at least one woman to their board of directors, and employers must make new accommodations for breastfeeding mothers. Women must be provided a private space other than a bathroom. Finally, some of you are getting a pay raise. Minimum wage increases to $11 or $12 an hour depending on the size of your employer. It's part of a stair-step increase that will bring minimum wage to $15 an hour across all of California by the year 2023. Dana Beards reporting at the state capitol.
A former USC men's basketball coach admits to taking bribes. Tony Bland pleaded guilty today in New York. Bland was one of 10 people arrested in a federal case, which included assistant coaches at other universities. He took money from business executives to influence athletes before they turned pro. Before USC, Bland was a coach at San Diego State University. His work there was not part of this criminal case. Hundreds of people are serving life sentences for murder, even though they were not present during the crime. A new state law provides a chance at resentencing. KQED News went to Folsom State Prison, where legal advocates are teaching inmates about their rights.
Name, your CDCR number, your county of conviction, and the year in which you were convicted.
Well, I want to welcome everyone to this Senate Bill 1437 training.
Good
morning. Before we start, I want to thank CDCR and Governor Brown and the administration at Folsom for allowing us to do this.
So a felony murder is a strange theory where it says that you don't have to have killed, intended to kill, just agreeing to participate in that underlying felony. And we have many cases from around the state, people who were, participants in the felony, but weren't even at the scene of the homicide, and yet ended up with a 25 years to life sentence.
It was a barbaric rule. Yeah, it's just how it was in California for so many years, and now that's ending. And now we're doing this statewide training so that people can see, like, hey, it's time to go home. Like, they finally fixed this injustice, and if you fall under that category, you're eligible for relief. And it's a dream come true for a lot of these guys.
So what we're doing is restore justice, coming into every prison in California to do these trainings, to pass out the guidebooks, to pass out the petitions for resentencing. 2 to 2.5 hour down and dirty law school class. Who is and is not eligible for resentencing?
SB 1437 does not apply to all defendants in a felony murder.
This bill does not go into effect until January 1st. And technically January 1st is a court holiday, so January 2nd. So if you turn your documents in now, do not expect that clock to start. Just want to make that very clear.
I've been reading everything that I can get my hands on about 1437 because I had a joint trial. And in my trial, the theory of the case was that my crimey was the perpetrator and I was the aider and abettor. And the jury convicted him of first-degree murder and me of second-degree murder. So I wasn't sure how I would fall into this specifically. But from the training today, I realized that the law is more elastic than what I initially read.
Okay. So I'll also add it in. I was a juvenile, so I also created emotion. So once I go back.
So again, even if it doesn't impact you personally, just know that there are people in Sacramento that are thinking about you, and they care about you, and they want to make the law just, not just for people tomorrow, but for people who were convicted yesterday, okay?
It gives a lot of guys hope. There's been a slew of Senate bills and Assembly bills giving people relief. So even if it's not that huge of a number or that big of a percentage of the population, it's still something that it gives guys, like all these guys, hopefully they're eligible and they go home. And that's going to mean a lot for their families, for their communities, and they're going to be assets to their community when they go home.
I'm Judy Woodruff. Tonight on the NewsHour, President Trump and congressional leaders meet with no sign of a deal to end the government shutdown. Coming up at 7, right after Evening Edition on KPBS.
We are expecting another chilly night tonight. In fact, we do have some freeze warnings in place for the interior parts of San Diego County, the deserts, the mountains. Temperatures are going to drop in some cases to those mid-20s, so a hard freeze is expected. When you have clear skies, when you have a breeze, well, it's the perfect setup to see these cold nights. We also have some wind advisories to the north of us. It's going to be awfully gusty in some regions, up to about 40 miles per hour, but that is not in San Diego County. Here's the big picture as far as precipitation. Not much going on. Tonight, it's going to be clear and chilly in the metro, reaching 40 degrees for that low. Look at the interior areas. Ramona at 29, Mount Laguna, a hard freeze at 26, and Borrego Springs at 30 degrees. If you have any kind of plants or any other vegetation that you want to keep healthy, tonight is the type of night that you need to cover them up or bring them inside. Tomorrow we will have locally windy conditions, 25, 30, maybe up to 40-mile-per-hour wind gusts. Other than that, it's going to stay dry and relatively sunny. Look at all the sunshine here. Borrego Springs at 62, Ramona reaching 65 for the high, and San Diego at 64 degrees with lots of sunshine. Oceanside at 63. Here's the big picture for the weekend. Look at this. We do have a storm that's coming into northern California, and we do expect that rain to drop as far south as San Diego. So get those umbrellas ready. Let's take a peek at this 5-day forecast. What should you expect? Starting off here, along the coast, we're going to see sunshine through Saturday and then some rain creeping in on Sunday. Temperatures don't really change much. We're going to stay in those low 60s. Inland, we'll see sunshine through Saturday, and then on Sunday, again, a little bit of rain creeping in. Temperatures will remain in those low 60s for the weekend. By Monday, we're up to 67 and sunny. In the mountains, it's going to remain mostly dry. We could see a couple of showers popping up Sunday, but mostly sunny conditions. It is getting cooler, though. We go from 51 on Friday to only 39 for the high Sunday. And in the deserts, we'll be in those low to mid 60s all week. Could see a passing shower on Sunday, otherwise staying sunny. For KPBS News, I'm Erin Calandra. Back to you.
The paved path in Mission Bay loops around the water for more than 10 miles. It's an ideal spot to walk, run, or bike, but not so much for your pets. KPBS reporter Claire Tragesser says bring a dog at the wrong time and you could end up with a fine.
It was cool and sunny as Vanessa Barrera and her dog Annie ran along Mission Bay. Barrera owns a company that helps pets get exercise.
To prevent pet obesity and then just to get the excess energy out of them.
The time was about 10:30 a.m., and that's important because it means Barrera was actually violating a city law. No dogs are allowed in Mission Bay, even on a leash, between 9 a.m. and 4 p.m. in the winter. In the summer, the ban is until 6 p.m. This was news to her.
I did not know that, no. Nope.
Barrera was standing next to a sign with the rules, but says she never noticed it before.
Is this your favorite spot? Come on.
Another dog owner, Amy Bjornson, did know the rules. She just didn't think the city enforced them. She was wrong.
I figured it was a beautiful day, we'll go sit by the beach, and I just sat down to like a picnic table with Skylar, and there was no one else around, and we quickly got approached. And the lady had told me, you need to get out of here with your dog. There's no dogs allowed here. She was a little aggressive about it. I mean, I kind of felt like I was a criminal, like there with the dog. So that was a little strange.
Bjornson wasn't arrested, but she did get a ticket for having her dog in Mission Bay. The original fine was more than $200. A judge ultimately reduced it. Now she goes to dog-friendly Fiesta Island. Dogs are banned from all city beaches during the daytime, except at designated areas like an Ocean Beach and Fiesta Island. But all of Mission Bay is off limits to dogs, including the boardwalk, grassy parks, and paved paths that seem like a perfect place for your pet. That's the part that doesn't make sense to Bjornson.
A lot of us are living in like apartments or like me, a townhome, and we don't have yards. So there's not a lot of places for dogs to roam. So if we go out for the day, we're going somewhere where my dog can be with us. The kids can come, we can have a picnic, we can throw the ball.
But senior park ranger Carolyn Estrada says there's a reason for the ban.
We look at the most populated times that people are out in the beach and park areas and try to make it a safe environment for everybody that, maybe don't like dogs or want to be around dogs.
Estrada says despite Mission Bay's 24 miles of shoreline and 27 parks, it's too crowded on weekends to make room for lots of dogs.
There's a party of, 100 people and another party of 20 people. And, before you know it, you have hardly any grass area available or any sand available.
Estrada says the dog ban has been in place for 30 years, and it started from community complaints. But instead of starting with a citation, Estrada says rangers will talk to dog owners to make sure they know the rules. If the owner says he didn't, he'll get off with a warning. But Estrada will write a ticket.
If the person were to say, they knew, or if the dog was maybe not as well behaved as it maybe should be.
The city does give out a lot of tickets in Mission Bay. From 2015 to 2017, the city gave out more than 600 dog citations, and just under half went to dog owners in Mission Bay, according to a KPBS analysis of city data. The next highest was in Balboa Park, with 145 off-leash citations. The city also gave 84 citations in Ocean Beach and fewer than 50 in Kate Sessions Park, La Jolla Cove, and La Jolla Shores. To reduce the hefty $200 to $300 fines, Estrada says Mission Bay offenders can do 4 hours of community service and go to a beach area community court.
They're going to go to a community meeting on a Thursday night, listen to community members, the police officers, a city attorney, a nurse, and myself, explain why these rules and regulations are affecting the community.
Back at Mission Bay, Keith Culver and his dog Josie say following the rules is pretty easy.
We don't go on the beach. Like, I'll come down here, I'll take a picture, check out the beautiful sunset, and then we'll just go back up and go away.
Possibly saving hundreds of dollars in the process. Claire Tregesser, KPBS News.
Now, here's a look at what we're working on for tomorrow in the KPBS newsroom. On Morning Edition, struggling to pay the rent, how an increasing number of San Diegans are spending more of their income on housing. And on Midday Edition, a conversation with Governor Jerry Brown. The California governor talks about the work he's done in Sacramento as he prepares to leave office. You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. Thanks for joining us. Have a great night.